we'll be looking at troubles in the subcontinent where India and Pakistan have clashed once again in Kashmir. I'll be joined by the Pakistani Ambassador to China to hear Pakistan's side of the story. Separately, India and China are in a standoff situation at the tri-junction of China, India and Bhutan. I'll be trying to find out what is behind this recent dispute and why Indian soldiers and equipment have crossed the border into China. Welcome to The Point, live from Beijing. I'm Liu Xin. This week, we'll bring you a series of reports on the situation in the South Asian subcontinent, focusing on border issues, the Dalai Lama, joint military drills in the Indian Ocean, and other hot issues in the region. We start today by taking a closer look at the most recent skirmish between India and Pakistan in the disputed region of Kashmir. The Pakistani military said on Monday that its forces have destroyed 2 Indian posts and killed 4 soldiers in retaliation for India's, quote, unprovoked firing along the line of control in Kashmir. Over the weekend, clashes between the two sides have killed 7 civilians and wounded several others. Both sides blame the other for opening fire. India says there have been 223 ceasefire violations by Pakistan this year, and the Pakistani side has summoned India's Deputy High Commissioner in Islamabad for the 2nd consecutive day. So what is the Pakistani side of the story? For more, I'm pleased to be joined by the Pakistani Ambassador to China, His Excellency Masood Khalid. Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining us today. Now, Pakistan and India are in heightened tension in the contested Kashmir region, which has been a flashpoint between the two countries for decades. How is the situation now? Who started the conflict in your eyes, and how do you foresee the situation developing?
Well, thank you very much. Who started the conflict? I don't want to engage in a blame game, but I think the facts should speak for themselves. There have been 542 ceasefire violations by our eastern neighbor in 2017 alone. And as you mentioned, 7 civilians were killed only day before yesterday. Now, the other facts, I would like to ask, who started the nuclearization of South Asia in 70s? And Pakistan, of course, exercised restraint after the first nuclear test. But again, in 1998, India again detonated a nuclear device, and Pakistan then announced its own nuclear explosions as a defensive strategy. Now, who has sent a serving naval officer to Pakistan to do subversion and sabotage? In Indian occupied Kashmir, for the last 2 years or so, especially after the death of a young Burhan Wani last year, India has indulged in excessive use of force against the Kashmiri people who are demanding their rights for self-determination, to decide their own destiny. And what they are demanding? They are demanding a right which was promised to them by the United Nations to have an independent plebiscite to determine their way of life, future way of life. So instead of granting them that right, India has been using excessive force in the Indian occupied Kashmir, and to divert the world's attention from that repression inside the Indian occupied Kashmir, India has raised tensions on the line of control, which has resulted in heavy loss of life on our side.
Well, some Western media have said that Pakistan and India are clashing at the particular moment when China and India are locked in a standoff near the China-India-Bhutan tri-junction. Is there a connection between these two? How do you think of the timing of the clashes between Pakistan and India on the line of control?
Well, it is unfortunate that 2 of its borders with its 2 neighbors, Pakistan and China, are not tranquil, not stable, and there is tension. Pakistan seeks peaceful resolution of disputes with India, including the Jammu and Kashmir dispute. And I think Chinese policy is also very clear that China has sought dialogue to resolve its border issue with India. I think that is a realistic and a pragmatic approach. And as far as the timing is concerned, it is unfortunate that instead of focusing on the development of the region, prosperity of our people, we are seeing this tension on our border with India.
Now in China, people use the term I am brothers to refer to the ties between China and Pakistan. So how do you see the relationship between the two countries, and if tensions between China and India were to further intensify, how would Pakistan react or respond?
Well, Pakistan and China have a very close relationship. We are all weather partners and support each other. As far as the tension between China and India is concerned, it is our hope that it will not escalate and the issue will be resolved peacefully, because it is in the interest of region, it is in the interest of peace in the region, and it is in the interest of the people of this region, for the greater good and the prosperity of this region. But Pakistan has a principled position on such issues. We believe that if sovereign countries enter into international agreements and understandings, then those understandings and agreements should be respected.
Now, the Indian Army Chief General Bipin Rawat said during an interview that India is ready for a 2.5 front war, referring to Pakistan, China and India's internal conflicts respectively. What is your reaction? Is India really ready for such a war?
Well, I think such hawkish and belligerent statements are not at all conducive to peace and stability in our region. We believe in peaceful neighborhood, and we seek resolution of disputes through peaceful means. Dialogue is the way to move forward. I think such statements are irresponsible, and as far as Pakistan is concerned, I can assure you that our armed forces are fully prepared to meet any eventuality, and we don't lower our guard, and we will do everything to defend our sovereignty, and I think it is the right of every country to defend its sovereignty and territorial integrity. Let there be no doubt about that.
Is also the shared position of China. Now, during during Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the US last month, the Trump administration approved a $2 billion sale of 22 General Atomics naval surveillance drones to India. Now, India is equipping its air, navy and land forces with advanced weaponry from the US, Russia, Israel and so on. How do you see these developments affecting the security situation in the region?
Of course, it is negatively affecting the strategic stability in the region. This increasing militarization of the region is not at all conducive to peace and stability. And I do not understand that while there are millions of people who deserve better way of life, yet there has been a 10% increase in the defense budget by our eastern neighbor. So I think the priorities need to be set right. We need to focus on the development of our region to bring prosperity and progress, and should not be engaged in an arms race in the region. I don't think that in the long term it will be good for India, for Pakistan, or for the region. So I think we should really think through these things.
Well, it is natural, given the rivalry between India and Pakistan, that Pakistan is also stepping up its military equipment. For instance, it's importing weapons mostly from China, as a matter of fact. How do you see the comparison of military power between India and Pakistan, and what is the possibility for the two countries slipping into war?
No, of course not. We have been exercising utmost restraint in the wake of these ongoing provocations on the line of control and the working boundary. And there is no comparison between the defense budgets of India and Pakistan. Pakistan, as I said in the beginning, South Asia was nuclearized by India in the 70s. We did not react. We exercised restraint even then. In 1998, India again went for a nuclear explosion. And then, as a defensive strategy to ensure our sovereignty, Pakistan also did the nuclear explosions for deterrent purposes, to safeguard our security, to safeguard our interest. Now, as far as the military expenditure or defense expenditure of Pakistan is concerned, it is purely for defensive purposes. We do not want any conflict in our region. We want to focus on the development of our people, development of our region, and we seek peace with our neighbors. This has been our consistent position and consistent policy. So while we have a right as a sovereign country to maintain a certain level of military preparedness, we are against an arms race in South Asia.
Well, we talk about the nuclear arms race in South Asia. India has been trying to join the nuclear suppliers group. Why does India need this membership? And if India were to become a member of the nuclear suppliers group, would the strategic balance in the region be changed in any way?
Of course. I do not understand the psyche and the mindset for this kind of frenzied military spending on the part of India, or their quest for the NSG membership. In 2008, India was given a waiver for nuclear trade, and since then we have seen that there has been an increased belligerence on the part of India, and now we think that if India is granted yet again this waiver to have the NSG membership, it will not only alter the strategic balance in South Asia, it will ignite an arms race, and it will not be good for the global non-proliferation regime. So I think world needs to take into account the realities, all these factors into account. This is very, very important. And on the Kashmir thing, I want to say one more thing. India promised a plebiscite under the UN Security Council resolutions to Kashmiri people. And it was India which took the Kashmir issue to the Security Council. And under those Security Council resolutions, a UN mechanism was created which is called unprovoked. While Pakistan has given full access to unprovoked to monitor the ceasefire violations, such access is not granted by India to unprovoked, which is again a violation of the Council resolutions. And yet our eastern neighbor wants to acquire, wants to become a permanent member of the UN Security Council resolution. So all these things, all these points need to be factored in.
Yeah, we have to leave it there because of time constraint. Thank you very much, the Pakistani Ambassador to China, His Excellency Masood Khalid. And thank you very much. We'll be hoping to get the Indian perspective on this particular issue later in the week. And you have been watching The Point with me, Liu Xin, here on CGTN. We'll take a short break and we'll be back right after that. The standoff between troops of India and China at the Doklam area near the China-India-Bhutan tri-junction continues as either side has come up with any solutions. Now, in June this year, India accused China of constructing a road towards the Doklam area, an objection that the Royal Bhutanese Army has also raised. India intervened by sending soldiers and bulldozers across the border into what China claims to be its territory and demanding that China should halt its construction work. Why is India intervening in the dispute, and is there a ready solution? I'm pleased to be joined in the studio by Dr. Binod Singh, Director of the BRICS Institute, New Delhi, and Mr. Ye Hailin, Director of the Center for South Asia Studies at the China Academy of Social Sciences. Welcome to the show, gentlemen. Mr. Ye, let me ask you first, because this seems to be the origin of this dispute.
Sure.
Why is China building roads in the Doklam area?
I think I am the right person to answer this question because I've been there for many times. Not only these Doklam areas, but also many other places alongside in the border at the Tibet Autonomous region. Their geographic condition is really tough, and our soldiers and our nomads, they live in these areas. Their living condition is also very tough. I've been there, I witnessed that a lot of the logistic supplements has to be carried by hand and with the horses, on the back of the horses. So it's quite tough. It's not a very sophisticated expressway system like from the airport to our downtown. It's not like this. It's still very simple, it's not a very high level standard, the expressway, but the construction is needed for supporting the soldiers and the farmers who live in these areas.
Yeah. Dr. Singh, how is China's action seen on the Indian side? Why does India see this as a threat?
It's hard for you to believe the Indian side because I have not been to the border area. What we see is that China cannot make the things which it has done in South China Sea. We have been watching South China Sea, what you have done there. That is a reference for us. So if you let you do what you're doing in South China Sea, maybe those countries are small. India is not Philippines, India is not Vietnam. So if you want to do something like you want to do other part of world, that's pretty difficult. So India has objection, and you should listen to India and sit down and talk to them. What's the objection?
But let's take a look at the situation per se, right? Instead of using South China Sea as a reference, because you have to judge the situation as the situation is. Is there any basis really to what India is thinking this time? Or is it just, speculation based on what they think they heard in the South China Sea issue?
If you think this question on the Indian perspective and the Bhutanese perspective, you'll change your mind. So if you talk to anybody who thinks how to make India secure, and now the Prime Minister of India, he's a very good friend of Chinese people. He has been very nice.
He's also very popular here, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Now, why he will do like this? Is he gone mad overnight? Or do you think our army didn't listen to him? Or they're crazy now? I would like to request you that just like the way you oppose Assad in South Korea, the way you oppose Americans coming to North Korea, the way you oppose any other power, trying to change the status quo. So there's only one fight, one point. Please don't change the status quo. Okay. It's not a question of road or airport or whatever. You do it. But there's an agreement. If you have an agreement and you are breaking it because the other side is a small country. Now, they're just next to me, very close to us. So we have some obligation. Yeah. We have some obligation, 1950, 2007. Yeah. And if you think India will forget the obligations just because of China is a very good friend, that's not true.
So you say India has obligations for Bhutan?
Okay. It does.
Yeah, Dr. Ye, what is your reaction to that?
I would like to make the response. Yeah. Firstly, Dr. Singh mentioned that the South China Sea as a reference, but we should notice that India never stopped the construction in their side border, not only on the disputed areas, but also non-disputed areas. Actually, India has most sophisticated infrastructure construction project in the Indian side, not on our side. We only pave the road. India has a lot of the chopper plate and also has a very sophisticated the road system. So it's not only China has to didn't do nothing to so-called change the status quo. India always keep their moving to change the status quo, to create a new status quo. So in this circumstance, how China will understand the Indians' action in the another side of the territory if India's accusation to China is precisely, so I think China has more reason to raise the same accusation towards to India. That's my first response. Secondly, talking about the Bhutan. I think when we launched the border issue negotiation with Bhutan between China and Bhutan, these two countries, these areas never be to be the issue of this negotiation. We have the border dispute, but not in these areas. So it's not related to Bhutan. It's really only related to India.
What is the core of the problem?
In my understanding,
there have been 24 rounds of negotiations between China and Bhutan.
This area has never been an issue.
Why has there never been a conclusion?
It's because the Bhutan is not an independent country. I quote the Dr. Singh's comment that India has an obligation. But in my understanding, it's not only the obligation, it's also the superpower over the Indians, the Bhutan's independence. This 20 rounds of negotiation not only happened between China and Bhutan. In the negotiation, the table, there's one invisible partners. It's called India. So Bhutan, every time when Bhutan engage with China, they have to report to New Delhi. So in my understanding, it's really difficult to say this is a free will of Bhutan government.
Dr. Singh?
I think we can make it very simple also. Like, it's very next to your house if somebody is making a new. I think you'll have some concerns, okay. What is the purpose of this road, okay. It's good for your PLA that you need a nice, better road. But right now at the border, what we think in India is not the best time. We are not against the road, but we are just saying that you just settle down the problem. Why you need road immediately, why you need it today. It's like a little bit very hard for us to understand, okay. Like,
what has to be the timing then? When
exactly.
is it good timing to build
good time
roads?
is to sit down if Bhutan
and not do anything.
India has the airport, the chopper place.
Please don't interrupt. Yeah. So what I mean to say as a Indian party here is that please do whatever you want to do if it is your land, but just prove it. It's your land.
Why not let Bhutan?
And how to prove it? If you just say this is my land from the ancient time, this is not the way.
But if it has been the case, is it wrong to say that?
I champion this discussion.
You can always say that this part is China's part, okay?
Because there has been this agreement between China and...
Actually, this area is not under dispute because the Bhutan government never discussed this issue with Chinese government. We have, again, I would like to emphasize, we have the territory dispute, but this area is not included.
In this area.
Yeah.
Why not? Why can't India let Bhutan decide
if you
its
make
own
roads in any
negotiations?
If you make roads in any part of China, it's like you're making a road to Pakistan, okay? What can you do? You have the CPEC corridor, okay? You're doing it because that part is under control of Pakistan, not India. So despite we are against that, please don't go to that POK, Pak-occupied Kashmir. But that's not in Indian control. Right now with Bhutan, we have this kind of understanding. You know, the way you have very good terms with Pakistan, we're not even so close the way you're close to Pakistan.
So are you saying that Bhutan is under Indian control?
That's what you understand. That's what you're trying to understand. What I mean to say here is that we are not even as close to Bhutan as you are close to Pakistan. This is a very good mirror for you to check.
I really difficult to agree with that. We don't have any treaty.
If you have a problem here,
India,
China, you start Pakistan to start shelling there, you know.
Well, you know, this latest news report published by Bhutan News Network by a legal advisor, Wancha Sangay, actually criticized India for using an iron hand to control the Bhutanese economy and preventing a conclusion of the territory negotiation between China and Bhutan. Again, why not let Bhutan negotiate with China on an equal basis?
Yes, ma'am. I would like to what the ambassador of Bhutan said. I think he is more legal than this person, okay? So if you quote him, allow me to quote the ambassador of, you don't have embassy with Bhutan, but there's a Bhutanese ambassador in New Delhi. So he submitted this to Chinese embassy. He already passed the message. I'm not carrying with me right now. You can read it. So whom should I believe? Should I believe this gentleman, or should I believe the legal ambassador of the government of Bhutan? He is the ambassador. The way you just spoke to the ambassador of Pakistan, we also speak to the ambassador.
I do not
we
know.
We can't speak to any person from Bhutan and what do you think of India relationship. We have to speak to the Bhutanese government. And there's no statement from the government of Bhutan that India is wrong.
It's very simple that why we don't have the Bhutan's ambassador in Beijing, because it really doesn't allow it. It's quite simple.
Yeah, there are no diplomatic relations between
and
China.
And we all know the reason.
Bhutan.
Why was the reason behind it? There's no diplomatic relationship only between China and Bhutan. Bhutan is the only neighboring country of China. We don't have any diplomatic relation. So we know the answer. It's because of the India. It's not because of Bhutan.
Okay, what could be possibly the way out of this standoff? I mean, China is demanding that India withdraw its troops and take back its bulldozers. But India says China needs to stop constructing roads in its territory. What could possibly be the solution?
Very honestly, withdraw the troops is the first.
Sorry?
Withdraw the troops is the
withdraw
first.
The
Indian
troops
troops is
What
the
does
first.
the Indian side insist?
Basically, if we withdraw the troops, I think the road will come up. That's the problem. It's very easy for us to withdraw the troops.
So China do any construction in its part of the territory, anywhere along its border, where the roads are very poor, where it's very difficult to access the troops there. Is there any possibility
why
that China
do you want
can
to go so close to us?
Well,
that's very funny.
Why are you so afraid? Well, I think we have to leave it there. Really, this is a topic that we can go on and on, but I think this kind of discussion is necessary, that we sit down face to face and listen to each other. We have to leave it there. Many thanks to Dr. Binod Singh from the BRICS Institute of New Delhi and Mr. Ye Hailin, Director of the Center for South Asia Studies at the China Academy of Social Sciences. And I still have my point to make. Now, China's foreign policy is to create a peaceful and favorable environment for its economic development and the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation through peaceful means. So it is in China's interest to befriend its neighbors and build companionships to increase mutual trust and reduce border frictions. China and India are the most populous countries in the world, and as neighbors, we mean a great deal to each other. When we are enemies, we both lose. When we are friends, we both win. And with that, we come to the end of this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. Thank you very much for joining us. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook using the handle The Point with Alex. Download the application CGTN Live to watch our show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. I hope you got the point.